This video revolves around the postmodern society and the novel City of Glass, written by Paul Auster. First off, I would like to talk about identity in the postmodern society with reference to the central conflict of City of Glass. In the world that we live in today, identity is influenced by the many opportunities that come with the postmodern society. The individual is not bound by specific social norms or traditions, but instead he or she is in position for creating his or her own identity. However, the lack of boundaries that lies with the establishment of identity may turn out to be an existential challenge for the individual. The well-known sociologist named Anthony Giddens calls the individual's self-identity a reflexive project because the individual constantly has to consider and evaluate his or her self-identity. If you then look closely at the novel City of Glass, you see that the novel is filled with blurred and changeable identities, which may be seen as a consequence of the postmodern society. When the main character, Daniel Quinn, decides to stop writing poetry, he adopts a new identity for the first time. When Quinn publishes his detective stories under the name William Wilson, he takes the first step in the process of creating several identities, which eventually causes him to lose track of himself. To underline this, I may present a quote from page 4. He had, of course, long ago stopped thinking of himself as real. In the quote, Quinn no longer sees himself as a real person because his fictional character, William Wilson, affects his self-identity. Quinn lives through the fictional world of his books, and the lines between fiction and reality becomes blurred, just like the identity of Quinn becomes blurred. Furthermore, Quinn identifies himself not only with Wilson, but also with the main character of his novels, named Max Work. However, several layers of identity can not only be found when looking at the character of Quinn, but also when it comes to Peter Stillman, who constantly states, "My name is Peter Stillman, that is not my real name." Furthermore, Quinn's dead son is also called Peter. This is hardly a coincidence, but can be seen as a factor that emphasizes the mystery of identity in the novel. Now, I would like to emphasize some general characteristics of the postmodern society. After that, I will put these characteristics into context of the novel City of Glass. The postmodern society is characterized by intense development and globalization. One of the main keywords for the postmodern society is individualism. The individual is no longer formed by a certain group of the society, but instead each individual shapes itself. However, this opportunity can be a burden for some who finds it difficult to navigate in the changeable world. Anthony Giddens mainly defines the postmodern society by the reflexive character of modernity. This has great relevance for the novel City of Glass. The reflexive character of modernity is defined by constant use of information and the need for rationalization. The traditional society was defined by definite rules and norms, but the postmodern society has been detraditionalized, and the individual can no longer depend on these rules and norms, but has to create his or her own view on life. The high reflexivity ultimately makes Quinn go mad. Quinn states that he is uncertain of who he is, but throughout the novel there is a pattern of him doubting or questioning his identity. I will now read aloud a quote that emphasizes this. And then, most important of all, to remember who I am, to remember who I am supposed to be. I do not think this is a game. On the other hand, nothing is clear. For example, who are you? And if you think you know, why do you keep lying about it? I have no answer. All I can say is this: listen to me. My name is Paul Auster. That is not my real name. The quote is found at page 4. In the quote, Quinn says that nothing is clear, which can be seen as an expression of the high reflexivity, where nothing is certain unless it can be justified by rationalization. Quinn cannot justify his identity, which makes him start questioning his whole existence. Furthermore, Quinn is very reflected on everything that revolves around the Stillman case. He has a little red notebook wherein he writes and questions everything. He wonders about every detail of his notes concerning Stillman Sr. Furthermore, a great example of the high reflexivity of Quinn is when he discovers that Stillman Sr.'s walking path spells out a new letter every day, which spells out the Tower of Babel. As mentioned before, individualism is a great keyword for the postmodern society and the City of Glass. Quinn is very much a product of his time. He tends to isolate himself from the surrounding world and his former friends. He has decided not to be a part of any social group, which essentially can be seen as an effect of the individualism in the postmodern society. To summarize, both identity and the postmodern society are very important parts of the City of Glass. Identity is one of the main themes and focuses, whereas the postmodern society is presented in Auster's way of portraying life and the characters.